Hi, I'm Ken. Just finishing up with a lovely Thanksgiving holiday here in the US with family and friends. Nice to be around the table together. I'm hoping that you're all getting excited for the holidays, whatever it is you celebrate and wherever you celebrate it. Today, we're going to take a look at my US collection, the very beginnings of my US collection. I hope you enjoy. A year ago at Walpex, not this most recent one, I got two important additions to my collection. First is this stampless cover from 1851. It's not a particularly notable cover, nor is it rare, but it fills an important place in my US regular issue collection. Before the first US postage stamp came out in 1847, there was still a US postal system, just no stamps. So when someone wanted to send a letter, they took it to the post office and mailed it. Back then, they could either pay the postage when they sent it or send it collect, with the person who picked it up paying the postage. In those early days, that might be a few cents more than paying up front. At the time this letter was sent, the rate was 3 cents for a half an ounce paid in advance. It would have been 5 cents if it was sent collect. This particular letter is a request for a reference check. Again, nothing special, but it's special to me. I wanted a stampless cover like this because it reminds me of how letters were sent prior to stamps being used. You may recall that the first US stamp came out in 1847, and this letter was sent in 1851, 4 years after that first stamp was issued. So you might wonder why this cover was sent without a stamp. Well, stamps were new then, and they wouldn't be required until 1855, another 4 years after this letter was sent. Often the post office didn't bother with them, since the hand stamps were easier than licking and sticking a stamp. U.S. stamps came into use so people could prepay for a bunch of them, so they could stamp their letters at home or in their office and mail them without waiting in line at the post office. In 1847, the first postage stamp cost 5 cents. That was the rate for sending half an ounce under 300 miles. The partner stamp cost 10 cents, which covered the same half ounce going farther than 300 miles. In 1851, the rates were lowered to 3 cents and 6 cents, but the distance limit was increased to 3,000 miles, largely the whole continent. You might be familiar with this stamp. It was issued in 1851 to cover that new rate. I couldn't find an example of a 6-cent rate cover. There's not a single stamp that covers that rate. It was just too rare a postal rate to warrant its own stamp. Anyway, this covers the first page of my US regular issue collection. I may look for a few others to round this out. It would be nice to add something from before 1847. I'll share that if I get one. It's been a busy month for me here. Besides Thanksgiving in the US and all the preparation that needs, I've also been participating in NaNoWriMo. NaNoWriMo is National Novel Writing Month, and that's November every year. The challenge is to write a 50,000 word novel start to finish in November. I'm one of many, many people who are doing this challenge. It's my 5th year doing it, and I just finished my 50,000 words a little early this year, so I'm thrilled with that. The novel itself is not my best writing, but it was fun to do anyway. Besides that and Thanksgiving, I haven't had much time to do stamp videos, so hopefully we're excited to be back to that. So this is a stamp video, and let's get back to that. The second important addition to my collection last year was this stamp. This is the first U.S. postage stamp, issued in 1847. Like I said, to cover the half-ounce rate going less than 300 miles. I don't have the 10-cent Washington stamp. It covered either a 1-ounce letter or a half-ounce letter going farther than 300 miles. That's the less common rate, and you can see that in the price difference between what these two stamps will cost you today. You'll notice that I've added the 1947 souvenir sheet featuring these two stamps to this page. These were printed in totally different colors than the original. I like to see them together on this page. My copy of US number 1 is not a very good copy. It didn't cost me very much, but the image is good and I couldn't be happier with it. I need to take a short break here to thank a generous viewer. Roger from Kansas was kind enough to send me some PDF pages that he'd been working on for his Germania collection and for Kaiser Yacht stamps. Really wonderful pages. Good job, Roger. Roger was also kind enough with his extensive Germania collection to send me off a whole bunch of Germania stamps that I needed to fill out my collection, so I really appreciate that. This first set has some Danzig and Polish occupations on the first row, and offices in Morocco and some Bavarian overprints in the second. The second set has offices in China and Turkey, plus 2 regular issues I've been looking for. On the second row, there's stamps from Saarland. These are just great. Thank you, Roger. Here are some of those stamps folded into my albums. Here's how those 2 regular issues tucked into my collection. Roger sent along the 2 and 35 cents. Nice. And these are my Sara overprints before Roger's packet, just the 2 stamps. This is the after for that page. What a huge difference that made. This page is really looking good now. I had absolutely nothing on this page before Roger's help. I had just a single strip of these 3 stamps on this page for the offices in Turkey, the 3 on the last strip. I really love how a page of Germania stamps looks. The colors on these stamps are wonderful, and the variation of these overprints makes for fun collecting. I had just 3 stamps for this page too, not enough to bother to mount them, but now look how nice this page is. Thank you so much, Roger. You were so generous. I really appreciate it. With the changing postal rates in 1851, there was a need for new stamps to cover those rates. These came out first in perforate, but in 1857, perforated stamps were introduced. Mostly of these exact same stamps, but the higher values were added too. For the imperforate issues, I just have 3 copies of the common 3-cent Washington stamp. The 11 and 11A variants are different only in how the outer frame is engraved. My 3rd copy is a wildly different shade than the other 2. At first I thought it might be the less common and more valuable issue number 10A. It turns out that this is just the shade of the 11A stamp, nothing particularly special. Shades happen either because the ink was applied differently, the plate was worn differently, the light faded some stamps, and others oxidized. For the perforated versions, I have just 2 examples. Of course, I have the common 3-cent stamp, Scott number 26, but I'm also thrilled to have the 1-cent Franklin stamp, Scott number 24. In 1861, the postal system issued new designs even though there was not a rate change requiring it. For this set, again, since the rate was 3 cents, that 3-cent stamp is the most common. This Scott number 65 is one of the first early US stamps a beginning collector will find. Next, I have decent copies of the 1, 2, and 10-cent stamps from this set. For a short while, the longer than 3,000-mile rate was set to 10 cents, which this 10-cent stamp paid for. The 2-cent stamp paid the drop letter rate, which was the rate to drop a letter at a post office for pickup at that same post office. That 2-cent stamp featuring Andrew Jackson is one of the few world stamps with a nickname, the Blackjack. I'm thrilled to have one, but I really hate this design. First, Jackson was not a very good guy, and I hate how his head fills the frame on this stamp. It's a horrible design in my opinion. In 1867, these designs were reissued with grills added to the stamp. A grill is a diamond pattern of indents in the stamp that helps the ink from a cancel absorb into the paper. These were issued in response to people figuring out how to wash the cancels off stamps and reuse them for postage. Stamps with grills are far rarer and more expensive than stamps without. I only have this 1 3-cent Washington with a grill. By the way, I got this stamp in one of those Spellman mystery boxes I've mentioned before. Those are great boxes, fun to sort through. Time for another thank you. Fran from Virginia asked if I still had any of those Germania packet giveaways, and I did, so I sent one off to her. Fran was kind enough to send me back a packet of stamps in return. Thank you, Fran. These are a nice set of Reich Post postcards. All the stamps are early Reich Post stamps. Flipping them over, my best guess is that these are from a student writing home, but my German just isn't good enough to translate them. Actually, that's not the whole problem. Look at this card. Look how tiny this writing is. Now, I learned cursive in school, and I've used it all my life. I still do sometimes. I know it's less common now. Anyway, when I get an old letter written in cursive, even in English, I find I really can't make out the letters. I think this is the same cursive I learned, but it's always written in a way I just can't quite make out. This card is the same for me. I can't make out enough letters to read it, let alone translate it from German. Oh boy, look at this, even zoomed in. I'm sure they could read this at the time, but I haven't got the patience to work through this. I do love the cards, though. Fran also sent these loose stamps. She's a fan of the U.S. transportation coils. These are a favorite of mine, too, and some nice adds to my collection. There are a bunch of nice stamps in this package, but Fran might be surprised that my favorite that she sent is this set of flowers from Argentina. I've never seen these stamps before, but I love the designs. You all know that I collect regular issues like these, and I'm a big fan when the series is a non-traditional size, not featuring the same boring face stamp after stamp. These are just great. Thanks again, Fran. For those of you wondering, yes, I do have one more pack of the Germania stamp giveaways. This set came out in 1869. I just have the 3-cent stamp from this set. The others lean towards expensive. You might think this set is a commemorative set. It's not. The first US commemoratives would be the 1893 Columbian issues. I think this set is beautiful. I'm not alone, but when they were released, the public didn't like them. They were replaced the next year with the banknote stamps. I'm not going to spend much time on this page. These stamps deserve their own episode, which I'll do sometime in the future, but I might as well give you a sense of the rest of my early collection. I've got a pretty good start on these stamps, particularly on the lower denominations. I don't have any of the stamps with grills yet, but I have a fair selection of the 3 major printings from the National Banknote Company, the Continental Banknote Company, and finally the American Banknote Company. On this second page, I have 2 of the 3 later issue color variation stamps in the first strip. In the second strip, I have the Continental banknotes with secret marks added. Finally, on the third strip, I have my copies of the higher value stamps. The stamps on this last strip all catalog on the expensive side. All of these I've found tucked into lots or one of those Spellman mystery boxes. The hunt pays off from time to time. All of these are really nice finds. In 1882, a new set of designs came out to account for a new lower postage rate of 2 and 4 cents. Except for the 1 and 2 cent stamps, these can be a little hard to find hiding in a lot. None of them are particularly expensive, but still rare enough. You'll notice that I have 4 copies of the 2-cent Washington, Scott number 210. I can't for the life of me remember why I bothered to set these stamps apart. These each catalog for under $1. I may change this page. I think we'll stop here for today. After this issue, we get back to the baby banknotes, where U.S. regular issues switch to the smaller, more familiar size. I think each series from here forward deserves its own episode. Before I go, I want to share one holiday joy with everybody. My wife and I went to Jordan's Furniture out in Avon, Mass. to see their Enchanted Village display. If you're a Boston area local, you know this place. The place featured a number of Christmas-themed animatronics scenes. I took a few pictures of the postally themed elements to share with you all. Anyway, there was another famous New England store, Jordan Marsh, who put up this display every year way back in the day. When they went out of business, Jordan's Furniture rescued the exhibit and puts it up every year now. If you're around the Boston area, it's a great place to bring the kids and kids at heart like me. The first best thing is that it's free. The second best thing is that they also rescued a blueberry muffin recipe that Jordan Marsh used to sell. It's worth the visit just for the muffins.